Hi, I'm Andrew Holzman of Family Tree Counseling Associates. I'm calling this video Family's Influence, or Family Influences Our Emotional Field, or Family Influences Our Relationship. And all of those are true. Our emotional field is who we are, what we're made of. Our relationship is very much affected by our role models, of course, and our personality. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about that. I wanted to start with this is not political in any way. I just wanted to start with the polls. I think they got something very wrong, which is they group people and they try to figure people out by just one characteristic: rich or poor, north or south, skin color, how religion, whatever they're trying to figure out. It's useful in putting it on TV or putting it on in the newspaper, but I don't think it's useful in terms of who we are. We're all distinct, regardless of our culture or our skin color and or where we're living. And I think that's kind of a major piece in terms of working with folks in relationships, because even if you grow up next door to each other, you're different families and you come from different places. And of course, you're not exactly like your family. You're not exactly like your mother or your father or your brother or your sister. You're different. You may run from the influences of your family, or you may embrace them, but you are affected by them. And the emotional field, which I like to talk about, is just the way that you put out who you are. And so your spouse or your partner is going to put out who he or she is as well in their emotional field, their fear responses, their trauma issues, their anxiety, their control, their shutting down if they get too stressed, or their explosiveness if they get too angry or stressed. All of those are part of this emotional field, part of possibly what we could also call transference. You know, if you see someone and you like them right away or dislike them right away, that's your emotional part of yourself connecting to that emotional part of that other person, and you're picking up on something that you're not even often consciously aware of, and you instantly like that person or dislike that person. And this is happening all the time. We're just walking around with this aura, in a sense, around us, which is touching other people and is touching us. And of course, that's very true when you're in a intimate relationship. That field is powerful. And so, how do you deal with that? How do you deal with the fight or flight, the fear, the anxiety, the rage, the depression? They're all part of kind of where we're coming from or where our partner is coming from. Um, those original experiences of our family of origin becomes that emotional field, right? How we take in what we grew up with. What else do we have? We grew up, we're young, we're going to be influenced strongly by what we experience in our life, you know, growing up. So even myself, I'm married a long time. My the experiences I had as growing up as a child, whatever affected me, is still the major influence, even though I've been married a lot longer than I was a child. And so that kind of thing is, if you're aware of it, that kind of influence, that kind of emotionality, that in a sense illogic, because people are saying, why am I acting like this? Well, you're acting like this because you have been influenced in ways that sometimes you're not even aware. And so the healthier you become, the less likely you're going to be reactive to that emotional field. Um, so, excuse me, knowledge is not only power, but it creates a level of intimacy, a level of connection. So if you can understand that you are a product of your family, sometimes many generations, usually many generations of influence, then you can have a voice that's unique to yourself. So you understand where you're coming from and you're not running from it, you're not ignoring it, and you're saying, okay, this is powerful for me. This even though I was traumatized in this way, or hurt in this way, or affected in this way, or abandoned in this way, or controlled in this way, I was affected by it, and I don't have to keep on spreading that way of doing things that was done to me, right? I don't want to be exactly the same. Sometimes people do it because they don't want their children to carry on kind of the bad tradition, the bad way of reacting that they learned to do in their family of origin with their parents. Sometimes they just want to have a better relationship, a closer relationship. If you have some understanding of what has happened to you, I believe, then you can talk to it. So, for instance, I will be affected by loss and abandonment because I had a parent, my father, who died when I was pretty young. That's going to come up. It's a long time ago, but it's going to come up for me in certain places. And I can be reactive to it. I can be, I can shut down or be prickly. But if I'm conscious of, okay, this is triggering something in that field about my abandonment and my loss, I can talk to it. I can explain it. I can be with someone who cares about me, as my wife does, and let her know that somehow this is impacting that emotional field. And that person who cares about me is going to be trying to not impact it as strongly. If I can talk to it in a healthy way without being explosive or shutting down, then the end result's going to be a lot better. So that's one thing of how. The other part of it is, I think, if you understand as well that your partner or your spouse is also a wounded, hurting individual who most likely has a pretty strong emotional field as well, pretty strong way of seeing you and seeing the world that is influenced by his or her woundedness, transferences, abuses, addictions, dysfunctional stuff. Whatever it is, they are influenced by it and they are affected by it. So if you're aware and you're working on seeing and having some grace for that other person, then it's better for closeness, it's better for intimacy. It's not as reactive. You're not just reacting to old stuff, but you're having some controls and some logic and some understanding about where you're coming from and where they may be coming from. So you can have some good discussions about that. So what we want to do is be able to focus on your history, but focus on your history in a way that helps you change the present, gives you a direction, helps you heal yourself, helps you stop sabotaging some old patterns. If you find yourself in relationships that seem to go nowhere or seem to recreate the same thing over and over again, then you have to look at yourself. You have to look at why you're picking those folks. And it may be because you're trying to replace something and work something out that you're unaware of. And if you're aware of it and you can speak to it and you can have in the moment some conversation, A, with yourself and B, eventually with the other person, then at least you'll know which person is going to be able to hear you, validate you, take care of, working on it if you're working on it. So self-work, self-understanding, and a calm distancing from old and broken emotional fields or transferences are a major step in safer and closer relationships. That's the takeaway. And I've seen it work. I've seen it work all the time. Folks who are fighting and on the verge of divorcing or have separated, and they work on talking about, first understanding and talking about what's going on with them, have created a much better relationship. So thank you for listening. My name's Andy Holzman. of Family Tree Counseling. I can be reached at 317-457-8668 or aholzman2 at comcast.net. Appreciate you listening.